We bring on Eric Malanoski, play-by-play man for the Raiders. Eric, thanks for coming on. How are you today?
Very good, and even better now that I was enjoying that deep track from Bush. Thanks for that, guys.
Yes, Bush is our artist of the day. So let's start with the new head coach there. You know, we've gotten to know Kurt Fitzpatrick pretty well over the course of the last few years and all his success at Cortland, and now he takes over this Colgate program. What have been your early impressions of Coach Fitzpatrick?
You don't like to jump the gun too early where you're thinking something and then it doesn't live up to it. But so far, Kurt Fitzpatrick has been just amazing the way he interacts with everyone. And I know Colgate is currently 0-2, but if you look at the 0-2 compared to last year's, it is a much more impressive 0-2. He seems to be an offensive mastermind, and he has brought that so far to the Colgate Raiders. And even on defense, where there's a lot of question marks, a lot of youngsters on the defensive side of the ball, they just play with a different kind of intensity this year. And you have the question when you see Division III coach, even though he had the highest success at that level, you wonder how it's going to translate to Division I. And so far the players have bought in and everybody's bought in. And I know, once again, it's 0-2, but it's a promising 0-2.
Yeah, both games came down to a single possession. You know, the Monmouth game in the opener, Colgate built a big lead and couldn't hold on to that lead in the second half. You know, I guess what allowed that game to slip away? What happened in that opener where, you know, Colgate jumped out to a big advantage early on and ended up losing 42-39? Just defense couldn't get a stop down the stretch? What happened?
Yeah, it was 4 interceptions in the first half, and you knew that wouldn't happen again in the second half. And Monmouth was going to score more points in the first half. And Derek Robertson, he's one of the best quarterbacks in FCS. So it was kind of a head-scratcher why he threw the 4 interceptions in the first half. And some of them were underthrown, and some of them were just great plays by the Colgate defense. Saying that, you know, the Raiders did have the big lead, and if they did come up with a stop or two. The other thing with that is that Zach Osborne did not play in the second half, so the offense did not sustain possession like they did in the first half, and I think that was a big reason why the defense kind of ran out of gas, and Derek Robertson and the Monmouth offense ended up doing their thing, laying the game, and ended up pulling out the victory.
You know, this is an opportunity, obviously, for Kurt Fitzpatrick to come home to Syracuse. And, you know, I guess what does this mean for him? What does it mean for the program to be able to play on this stage in the Dome against a Power 4 opponent like this?
He does a good job of keeping his emotions in check where, like you said, from Fulton, New York, so I'm sure he has some emotions for this, but you'll never catch him saying that. He'll just say it's, you know, one game at a time and all that cliche stuff. But and if you think about it, even if Colgate beats Syracuse and makes a statement, which obviously the odds are very much against that, it comes down to winning your Patriot League games for Colgate. And the only way they're going to get into the playoffs and accomplish their ultimate goal is winning their Patriot League games, which Fordham is on the schedule the following week. So I'm not saying this Syracuse game isn't big and Colgate's not going to go after it just like any other game, but in the grand scheme of things, this one really doesn't count for the Raiders like it will the Patriot League games.
So with that being said, Eric, what do the Raiders hope to get out of a game like this? You know, what's the goal on Friday night aside from, you know, the outcome? And I know you're trying to win the game, but let's say that's out the window. What are they trying to get out of this game?
Stay healthy, and the other thing is, and I don't even know the final score from a couple years ago because it still gives me nightmares, but I know it was 60-something-0. Be competitive, and that's what they've been against two very good teams in Villanova and Monmouth, obviously at a different level with Syracuse. But if they can stay competitive and have some momentum going there, I mean, if they were to lose by 2 touchdowns, I think that would be a win for Colgate and really give them some momentum going towards the Fordham game a week out at Andy Kerr Stadium.
Yeah, 65-0 back in 2023. The previous 4 games, 52-6, 42-7, 33-7, and 65-0. So it's been a while since, you know, these two programs have been competitive. You got to go back to the early 80s to find a game that was relatively close. 1950, the last time that Colgate beat Syracuse 19-14. When you look at this current team, you touched on it a little bit with that first answer about Kurt Fitzpatrick being an offensive guru. What are the strengths of this team, and what are the weaknesses of this team as you see it through 2 games?
I'll start on offense with the strengths, and it has to be Trayvon Saunders, who is going to shatter Colgate records when it's all said and done if he can stay healthy. He's knocking on the door of having all-time reception lead at Colgate. Luke Graham currently has 221, while Trayvon has 203. And the difference this year is that they're using them more, I guess. In the past, it was screen. It was just quick slants. Now, Trayvon is averaging almost 16 yards per catch. Last year, his average was under 10. So Kirk Fitzpatrick is using Trayvon Saunders in ways that we haven't seen in the past. And I think Trayvon Saunders is one of the best wide receivers in the FCS, so he is certainly a strength. Zach Osborne, who has gotten some reps and starts in the past, is playing much better. Kirk Fitzpatrick has him rolling out of the pocket, and Zach Osborne looks much better. There's a lot of positives on offense. Their starting tailback, Marco Maldonado, has missed some time with an injury. Depth is a little bit of a concern with Colgate, I would say, especially at the running back position, but Danny Shapen, the transfer from UConn, looked pretty good. I would say the major weakness, and we saw this in week 1 against Monmouth, is the defense. Just they're young, but new defensive coordinator Trevor Warner has them going in the right direction, I think, and you just see the intensity. So, I mean, I call the defense a weakness, and statistically they have been. But boy, they look better than they have the past couple seasons.
You know, you mentioned a moment ago that, you know, Colgate, what matters to them is what happens in the Patriot League, and I totally get that. You look at the preseason predictions, right, and Colgate's picked to finish 7th out of 8 teams in the conference. Do you think that's fair where they are? Do you think that they're, you know, maybe being slept on a little bit? Or, you know, what do you think about, you know, where they kind of fall in the pecking order at the moment?
I think that prognostication is fair heading into the season, but now, because we really didn't know what to expect with Coach Fitzpatrick, but now seeing what I've seen in the first 2 weeks, yeah, I think they're being slept on. But, you know, fair to the preseason prognosticators, they didn't really know how a former D3 coach would handle things at the Division I level. But I've watched some Patriot League games. I watched Fordham against Monmouth last week, and it just seems like Colgate is going to be very competitive in the Patriot League. Are they going to win it? I don't know about that. Lehigh looks pretty good, but I would be shocked if they finish where the preseason poll had them. I think they're going to finish in the top half.
Yeah, and they don't play Lehigh till the very end of the season in middle of November. First conference game is Fordham on September 20th. Syracuse, incidentally, opens up its conference schedule on the 20th as well on the road at Clemson. You being a Cuse guy, I want to get your impressions on Fran Brown and this current SU squad. Obviously won 10 games a year ago. So it's a much younger team, more inexperienced, a lot of new faces this year. What do you make of the Orange through 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, obviously losing the quarterback, Kyle McCord, it's a work in progress, but I like what I see, and I absolutely love Fran Brown. I graduated from Syracuse in 1998. I know I'm dating myself, but, you know, I got to live through the Donovan McNabb days and the glory days of Syracuse football, or at least in my eyes, and it's been a little tough going since then, but Fran Brown has the team headed in the right direction. I couldn't be more ecstatic as a Syracuse alum, how the football team is looking, and plenty of excitement, plenty of explosive plays, and kind of sizing up the matchup on Friday. Colgate's going to be wary of that, the explosive plays, and not trying to give those up because the game could get out of hand in a hurry if Syracuse strikes.
And along those lines, you know, we talked about what happened the last time these two teams faced off, 65-0, and you said you wanted to be more competitive. So lay out a blueprint for how this game is more competitive from a Colgate perspective come Friday night.
Yeah, I think it's a classic David Goliath matchup where if you're the underdog, you want to run the ball, be able to chew some clock, and score when you get the opportunities. When you get down there, make sure you put some points on the board and don't let opportunities go by the wayside. And then on defense, Syracuse is going to score. There's no way that doesn't happen, but make them earn it. Don't give up the 65, 70-yard pass play. Make them take 5 minutes off the clock at least to score. And obviously, turnover battle. If you can get a couple turnovers and take advantage of them points-wise, then I think that would be competitive. And one thing Coach Fitzpatrick is going to do, and I guarantee it, even if it's a 4-score game, 4-touchdown lead for Syracuse in the fourth quarter, Colgate's going to keep fighting and try to whittle away at that lead and try to make it a more manageable deficit. So, that's something I'm looking forward to for this matchup between Cuse and Colgate.
All right, 7 o'clock kick inside the Dome on Friday. Eric, we appreciate the time. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it.
All right, Eric Malanoski, Colgate football play-by-play. And with that, we will hit our final time.